Hello and welcome back to Global Focus Today. I don't know where our background went, but don't worry about it. You know how hard I work to give you interesting and exciting and different guests. Today's couple are really amazing. Yes, you get a twofer, which is kind of nice, but I'm going to give you my things nobody knows about spiel first because it just tickles me so bad. The first one is Reverend Dr. Rita Andriello. Now, just listen to this. Performance artist who studied opera for over 10 years, toured with her own one-woman show called Tomatoes on a Windowsill. Is that what? I love that. She had a prison ministry in Los Angeles for over 5 years, and she's a labyrinth facilitator. My favorite meditation on earth is a labyrinth. Her partner and spouse, Reverend Dr. Patrick Farron, secret identity was Spider-Man. He toured for 10 years for Marvel Comics, and he was part of the Child Abuse Prevention Program. He founded and ran a successful acting and networking studio in the Southwest, and he has spent a large part of his life doing inner child work. In fact, he wrote a book about it called The Memoir of a Little Bee. So please help me welcome Reverend Doctors Rita and Patrick. I am so tickled that you said yes.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
You're so welcome.
I know we're in Kauai, so it's much earlier in the day for you than it is for me. But I want to know how you ended up in Kauai and started a church in a place where there wasn't even any new thought.
All right.
I'll start.
Rita, you want to chime in first?
Yeah. Okay, so you know when something is right and you just know it's right, but it doesn't make any sense? Okay, so when we graduated from ministerial school in 2011, we knew we wanted to have our own ministry, our own work. And so we went to Kauai on vacation. Somebody had given us a gift of a long overdue honeymoon, take my word. Anyway, so there we did. It was like as soon as I got off the plane, Patrick can speak for himself, I was like, oh my God, this is where we're supposed to be. And after that, it was like 6 months later, we were gone we sold everything and we were gone from California. So I can only tell you that it was like a calling, like it was just like, oh, that's where we're supposed to be. And for myself, I never thought like, oh, it's not going to work out or anything like that. It just seemed like we just went boom, boom, boom. And everything just opened up like you were talking about before, Dr. Sharri. When you make a decision and the universe just opens up. So obviously it was the right thing because here we are almost 12 years later.
Clearly so, 10 years in, I'm impressed.
Yeah, and Patrick can add to that if he wants.
Well, I love the idea that I told Rita, I said, I think we should look at the other islands so that you can be really sure. And she was like, no, that's not necessary. And so I wasn't as definite as she, I'll be completely honest. But I always know when Dr. Rita has that calling and that idea that to jump in with it, that takes a little bit of an art, because not about avoiding my stuff, but to go, you know what? If you get off of a plane and you look and it lands and you say, this is where we need to be, then I always get the God bumps, and they just goes, let's go. So, it was the hardest thing with it was the idea that nobody really knew anything about this science and they were more like, oh, these people are coming, and oh, they're going to do a retreat center probably, and it wasn't exactly the positive on their end, because you have to take, some time to prove yourself when you're in a community, especially Kauai. It's a smaller country island. So, but we followed it. And
well, how did you, for me, I want to know, how did you know where to buy property? How did you build a building? How did you get people started? What were the things that you did?
Well, the first thing we did was decide on the date that we were going to open, and we said, okay, this is the date. And we sent out a postcard. I wish I had it with me. It said, we're open, see a Center for Spiritual Living Kauai coming this date, July 7th, 2013, call for information.
First service.
First service. And we didn't know where we were going to be. But the first place we went was a hotel. So, and we walked into this hotel, and the lady greeted us, this Hawaiian woman. She said, I just feel an affinity to you two. Yes, you can have this room in the back, and there'll be so much money. And it was just really not a lot. It was like $200 or something for each Sunday. Well, it was a lot to us, but for coffee too. And then the next day, that lady disappeared. I don't know what happened to her. She got fired.
We never saw her again.
Never saw her again. And then
she got us in and then left.
I know, it gives you goosebumps, right?
Well, I'm thinking there's a little magazine I get every month called Angels on Earth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what they say, nobody knows how many angels you've entertained unawares. I'm thinking that lady maybe had wings under her sweater.
She might.
Oh, I think she did.
Or under her movie.
So after that, they closed their hotel. They changed management. They kicked us out. And in 30 days, we had to find a new place. So then we went to an office building, and we were there for 8 years. And that kind of worked out very strangely too, but I don't want to get into all the details. It'll take too long. So we were there for 8 years. And then we realized that if we did not move, we made it through COVID there and everything. But we realized that if we didn't move, the center would probably not exist anymore. It was just like that impetus that you just have to make a change. And so what happened, Patrick?
Well, so energetically, just to back up a little bit with that, following energy, there was on paper, there would be nobody that would say, this is a good time for you to move your building because, you're not filling it since COVID, and we said, no, I said, no, I could feel it. It said, you must expand your place now before you see it. You must believe it before you see it. So we kept getting these calls from, congregants and communities saying, have you checked out the Buddhist temple? Have you checked out over at the Buddhist temple? They rent it. The big activities, and it's really big. And we said, no. So a girl called and said, would you be interested in renting full time to CSL Kauai? So here's the temple and here's the building. So they're literally side by side. We're neighbors on the same property. And we went over there, we did some negotiating, and sure enough, they were a little leery. At first it was like, we've never really rented full time to a new thought center or whatever, but we're very close in our belief system. So sure enough, all of a sudden we had our 80 meetings. And then finally, when our lease was up, we said, we're going to go. And it worked out. What was interesting is the same amount of money, pretty much, that we were going to have to do with the new rent increase it was such a win-win for both of us because they had lost their congregations much older. So they were losing that. So the Buddhists were like, well, so now we're on their property, and they said yes, and we went in. And here's the other last thing with that. We're smack dab. Before we're in an office building where you don't really know we're here. Now we're in the middle of Kapa'a. Episcopal church over here, Mormon church over there, Buddhist here, Adventist, Seventh-day Adventist. So we're smack dab in the middle with our big sign saying, guess who's here?
Yeah.
So you've got a spirit park on Kauai.
Yeah.
And then
yes.
I love it.
Of course,
you said something to me before we started that I want you to talk about because I thought it was so cool. How you got through COVID, how you made it, because there are so many organizations that went belly up in COVID just because there was people think if I'm not there, I don't need to tithe, and they forget that you still the light bill and water bill. So how did you do that? Because I know you're still doing it, and I think it's cool.
Well,
I would have to. Oh, go ahead, Rita.
Okay, I'll just start. Well, first of all, we told ourselves that we were going to do it. We were like, this is too important and it's too necessary for us to just die. So we were like, we're going to do this. And one of our board members came up with this idea. Well, we can't really have people in here. So we can only have like the 10 people in the room at that point. I don't know what it was like.
It had to be 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Right. And then, 10,
Yeah. And so she said, why don't we do a telethon like Jerry Lewis style? And so we did a telethon and we raised I think it was like $35,000 or something, which was a lot for us. And it was like a sign. I remember one of our congregants and one of our donors and congregants said, now you know you're supposed to be here, because everybody just came. Nobody ever stopped giving their money during COVID. They just wanted us to be there because, first of all, we're a destination island and people come here and they arrange their Sundays around being with us. So yeah, if you want to add something to that, Patrick.
Well, I want to add that the most important thing is that we had already put live streaming into effect.
Right.
So that had already been before COVID. So they could have us on Sundays, and we brought the 10 people. It's interesting bringing it up again, Dr. Sharri. It's very interesting because it was tougher now thinking about it than it actually was when we were just go for it and don't look back. I spent 2 days, I will be honest, having the huge pity party. It was the biggest pity party I ever have had for myself. And then I even added a little anger into it, and I said, 8 years, we have did this to build this incredible over 100 people on a Sunday. Oh. And so after I got past that, then I said, okay, now we have to go. So we had already had that in place. And we got very clever too when they started doing the, 6 feet and, apart. But we also, and I said, I said, you know what? Then they would let the people go to the restaurants. And you would walk in with the mask, and when you sat down, you could take your mask off. So being the rebel with a cause that I am, I went, well, why can't we be a restaurant? We're serving spiritual food. And I said, this doesn't make any sense. So we made our programs into menus. So when you came in, you had your appetizer, which was the opening, practitioner, and then we had the music as one of the entrees, and then our message was, and everyone says, "Don't you think you're stretching this quite a bit?" I go, "Are you going to tell me that people cannot come to get spiritual food, and that we're not as important as a restaurant?" I have to beg to differ. And nobody went against us. I mean, some people in the congregation had their ideas and their stuff, but the actual mayor and everyone went, no, you guys clever. Clever.
That is so fabulous. I love it. And there's another one coming up Saturday, right? The annual telethon?
The fifth one, tell them about it, Rita. It was birthed in COVID. We always remember that.
It's birthed in COVID. And basically what it is it's all local talent. Like not necessarily even people that come to our center. They might be people that come in and out of our center. Some of the people are from our center. But we just gather everyone together. We have a theme. It's Seasons of Love this time. And everybody comes and just gives of their talent. And it's singing, dancing. We have drummers. We have talks. Different people are going to give talks. We have a choir. It's just like it's and then us talking. And then Patrick. There's a special appearance by Miss Cheryl Channing. She's Carol's sister who never got a break. And that's all I'm going to say. You have to tune in.
Y'all have taken a tent revival and put it online.
Right.
Yes, pretty close, but you don't want to miss. This is Carol's third appearance on these things, but this year she's retiring because there's just that part of me that says, I think it might be time for Miss Carol to go, but she's going to have a blowout when she leaves. So it was a character that was, yes, it was. I always used to do Carol Channing imitation. So for people, they would say, will you call my friend and sing happy birthday? And as Carol Channing. So when Cheryl was birthed, Cheryl was that sister that never got a chance to be the star that Carol was, because she had to stay home with mom and dad and take care of them. So she was bitter. So now she's completely out.
Well, let me just say something about this, though, because the reason she was birthed is because there's a group here that does drag shows, right? And we asked
yes,
them, and they never got back to us. So Patrick's like, well, then I'll just do it.
If they're not going to call me back, I'll tell you.
There you go. That works for me. That works for me in a big way. Okay, now I don't want anything to fall through the cracks. So I'm going to come at this backwards. I've got all of your books, and we've got banners for all of your books. But what I want you to talk about first is the ones that are coming out next year, because I want to make sure you get a chance to talk about those before we run out of time. So,
okay,
Rita, go first and tell us about the red dress.
Okay. My book is called Where is My Red Dress? One Woman's Sexual, Sensual, Spiritual Journey to Wholeness. And it is a very, very deep memoir based on the idea of how we live our lives so unconsciously to begin with, and how the things that we're told as a child and, scientifically speaking, the things that are in our subconscious play out throughout our life until we become conscious. So it's my journey, and it is about sexuality because of certain programs that were placed in my head and that I didn't even know were there, and then continue to act those programs out until I realized, and one of the big ones was that I'm not enough. That's one of my big programs. And that played out sexually for me in not healthy ways. So the book is about that and how I broke through that and how I came to be who I am today. And the idea that of all the things that are from history and everywhere else that are programmed within us, not just from our families, but as women, where, to be subservient and to be this, and, this is sexuality is bad and you're bad and blah, 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 blah. And so I'm bringing it all together in a way that's healthy. Like to know that your sexuality, your sensuality, your spirituality are really all one thing. So that's basically what it's about. And there's a lot of surprises in it. I know. So I used like scientific information, spiritual information, historical information, and then my life story is interwoven in it. So that's basically it in a nutshell. And it was scary. And I had to write it like I wasn't going to publish it because I wanted to be totally honest. And when I first put it out for people to check it out for me so that, they could write testimonials for me, I was scared the first time. I was like, oh my God, now they're really going to know who I am. But I think it's going to be very helpful. The feedback I've gotten is that it's helpful. It will be helpful to people, and women especially. And the men who love us and don't love us, maybe. I don't know.
No. Okay, so now, Patrick, what's your book that's coming out in February?
I just want to tag one thing coming from the man's point of view about her book, is that one of the things I have said is, if you as a man are lucky enough, fortunate enough to lay your hands on this book and you read it, it not only brings out the wonderful feminine side of ourselves, but it also, you'll look at women in a completely different way. You'll get to know women in a whole new way if you're ever fortunate enough to pick up what you're going to think is a woman's book and realize that you're a part of that. And it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Okay, so what I have to say is, when that book comes out in January, that statement by that man should be on the back cover.
Ah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he's already written it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
now, since you had to go last on your new book, you can tell us about your book that's already available on Amazon. Memoir of a
I will. It is the memoir of a little man, and its actual phrasing is finding the prince in the ashes of chaos, dysfunction, and mental illness. I know that's not a real like crowd pleaser to rush over to get that, but it tells about. I was called a little man by my mom when I was young because I was this little guy who kind of put the family together. My dad was a paranoid schizophrenic, and my brother is bipolar, and it was an incredible story. But what I love about my journey of writing this is I never once left the reader, in my opinion, without how to get out of a situation that you're in, and how this little boy, this little man said, this is horrible, but I can get through this. I know the people that have read it are all like, I don't know how, just recently they said, I don't know how you as a minister were able to be that vulnerable and that open and tell us the things that you went through. I was the appeaser in the family, and I'm not alone. Everybody has something in their makeup. So it's not like if my mother had been alive when this came out, she would have said, do not air your dirty laundry. But I'm saying that there's nothing dirty about the truth. And there's nothing dirty about opening up and letting people. So the real message for the book for me is that no matter what, no matter how frightening, and there were some frightening moments, that inner child is so wonderful and so loving and so pure that even with all of that stuff, we have this power in us that has never been touched by anything. And that is what my hope for this book is to have a talk with it and do my workshops that I do on the inner child. And it's just very exciting to me. I'm very passionate about it because I will tell one little spoiler of it. It's very funny. When I was little, I was like this grown-up little boy, and women would come and I would say, you look very beautiful today. And I'm like 6, and you look beautiful. And it was a very mature thing. But what I learned from it, and then at the end, when my mother was passing, she said, you're my little boy. And I went from little man, and now at 55, 60, whenever it was when my mother passed away, about 58, I became the little boy. So I went, and it hit me like a lump. I said, oh my God. I went from the little man back to what I always wanted when I thought my childhood was being robbed, was to be a little boy. So yeah, real proud of this journey that I have in the book.
Now, before we talk about Rita's books, I want to ask you a question about that workshop that you just sort of shuffled past there. And that is, you said earlier that you've been live streaming all along. So I'm wondering, do you live stream the workshops also?
We do. Sometimes I don't with the inner child, because there can be some stuff that comes up. What we've decided to do is, if you take the workshop, I have another thing to the lessons of the little man that I do periodically, a 2-hour thing that we come on, but we don't do it like live streaming because we don't want somebody to be revealing something or being sensitive or being vulnerable. But when they take the class, they can, because Zoom. Everybody's a part of it, right? Zoom, yeah.
Yeah, Zoom. Yeah. He does it on Zoom, and it's by signing up for it.
Right. That's exactly. One more question, and then I'm going to hear about all of these books. And that question is, I'm presuming that if somebody goes to your website, they can find any information about how to sign up for the Zoom workshops.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Just wanted to be sure that because after we've told them this wonderful thing is available, make sure they know where to look for
it. Exactly. Thank you.
Tell us about the other books.
Okay.
The titles are not quite as provocative, but they're really cool.
Okay, so should I go first? Yes.
Yes.
So
yeah, you can.
Okay, so this thing called treatment was actually my ministerial thesis, and I turned it into a book. So it's basically an overview. It's really great because it's an overview of the New Thought movement, going up to Ernest Holmes and the idea of where spiritual mind treatment came from. And so it goes through all the New Thought people, and it's a very kind of small book, easy to read. And if you don't know anything about New Thought and you don't know anything about the history, it's a great little introduction to that. So that's that. And I get people buying it for their centers and stuff like that. So, they can we give it away as a present in our center. And then my other book, well, when I was, my friend was going through cancer, and I wrote a blog, I wrote a treatment for him every day for about, at least when he was going through his treatments for at least 2 months. And then when I stopped writing those treatments, I got kind of withdrawal, I've been writing every day. So I started to continue to write, not for him, but just to write. So I would wake up every morning and go, what do I need to know? That's the name of the book. And I would write a blog, and it would be something about some challenge I was going through or some challenge that was in the world or whatever. So I had over 3,000 blogs online. And then I know, right? Because I wrote steady. I never skipped a day for 6, 7 years. I never skipped a day. So anyway, so from that book, I just picked 101 of them and published them into a book. I mean, I could do it more than that, but that's all I did. 101. So I called it, What Do I Need to Know? 101 Thoughts that changed my life. So you just kind of open it up. You go, oh, what do I need to know today? And then you open it up. So you don't read it. You don't have to read it consecutively. So that's
my little sister would have called that her magic 8-ball.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
What do I need to know? And open the book, and
right.
This is how spirit works. What you need to know is what's going to be on the page you just opened it.
Right.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I designed a workshop around it too, and I haven't done it in a bit, but I'll probably do it again. And that's it.
Well, now that we've got to know you a little bit, I have 5 questions that I ask every guest, and you're gonna answer them separately because you're 2 different people, so you have 2 different
Absolutely.
You might have some overlap, and you can take turns. So Rita can go first with the first question, and Patrick can go first with the second question. So here's the first question, probably the one that's most important to you. Is there anything you want our viewers to know that I haven't asked you about?
You mean about myself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or your ministry, or about it?
Okay. Well, I had a full life before I was ever a minister. I mean, I raised 3 children. That was not easy, but I did. I have 5 grandchildren, and I love them dearly. I teach 2 of them voice online. I'm actually trained singer. I think you said that before, but I used to travel from Farmington, New Mexico to Santa Fe, New Mexico to study with a famous opera singer there, Marilyn Niska, with my girlfriend in her DeLorean every week. And I guess I'm a very dedicated person. When I get something I want to do, I do it. And I performed a lot of musical theater. I never really pursued opera because it was too scary to me. It was just too, you had to be too perfect. But my voice is trained for that. But yeah. And so I feel like if I wanted anybody to know, I would just say, I'm a self-determined person who, if I have something I'm going to do, I get a clear vision and I do it. I don't dilly-dally. I just do it. And if I feel like it's the right thing in that moment. So I'm proud of that part of myself. I mean, I have made a lot of mistakes in my life, and everything we all have. And maybe if you want to call them mistakes, Ernest Holmes would say there are no mistakes. And I agree with that too. But yeah.
My father used to say the only mistake that's stupid is the one you repeat, because that means you didn't learn anything the first time.
Right.
Exactly.
You haven't had any stupid mistakes.
Right. And I played Guinevere, and I also played Miss Mona in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Those are my two.
Oh, that's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I know I don't look much like her, but.
Okay, Patrick, top that.
Yeah, it's always hard to go second, isn't it? Let me see. Two things are popping into my mind. Well, I can't let it go without elaborating a little bit on my time as Spidey and my time as Spider-Man, because I learned a lot about myself. As a matter of fact, someday I'll write a book called The Man Behind the Mask, because I auditioned in New York for Captain America, and Captain America was very, very boring. And he just stood there with it. And these are characters that you go around the world and you do book signings and comic books, conventions, and Stan Lee was there. And so I said, okay, well, this is fine, but I wasn't very enthused. And she said, wait a minute, I think that this might be for you. Hold on a second. Can you go put this on? Because it's... Can you go put this on? Let me just tell you that it was form-fitting. And I was 29 when I auditioned for that. So I put it on, and it's all one piece, and it zips about the back, and over your face, and you're in one piece of that. And all of a sudden I put it on, and I just started feeling like jumping up on desks, and I was like, oh. And she said, I have a feeling you're Spidey. And I go, yeah. And he talked and, did the whole thing. So I was blessed enough to get a program. I did it for 10 years. So I retired from it when I was 40. And that's an older Spidey. So this is say that towards 39, I was holding my stomach in just a little bit more than I was when I started. But what happened was they gave a program and they took it away too quickly, in my opinion. But it was about Spider-Man, and that when he was Peter Parker, before he became a superhero, he had sexual abuse. And so what this program was, you go around to all the schools around the country, and you would have these big forums. And Spidey, it even gets me emotional thinking after all this time too, he would disclose to the kids. He would say, before I was Spidey, I was Peter Parker, as everyone knows, and my older kid, there was sexual abuse. And then they went into also verbal abuse, and they also went into physical abuse. But what was great about that opportunity for me is that I had an opportunity, because I had some of that in my background. It's in the book, so it's not. It was an opportunity for me to disclose that part of me, but behind a mask where I was safe, and safe with a superhero. And I think that that's what everybody feels. The little boys and little girls felt that. One of the kids said, came up and goes, Spidey, that was sad what happened to you, but you turned out really good. And I went, thank you. I know, right? So I was so blessed for years, about 2 or 3 years, to travel to all these places and actually give them the strength. When I would go to New Mexico, they said, we don't have enough therapists, we don't have enough social workers to take it when Patrick comes to town, because all the kids feel safe enough to disclose. So they're all there doing it. So I feel, yes, I like the idea of being this kind of superstar when you go into things, but my real heart was when I was able to do that. And a social worker came up to me and said, this must be very nice for you, because whatever's inside this suit, I could feel your heart. So you must have had something like that. And then at that time, I was more like, no, I'm just an actor. I was trying to still cover up. And then because of that, I was able to open up with myself and disclose to myself. So, yeah, real special. I really appreciated those years of being a superhero. Yeah.
Okay, next question, and you get to go first.
You can go first, Patrick.
How does what you do as Reverend Dr. Patrick, as co-minister, as former Spider-Man, as author, how does all of that encourage, support, produce, pick your own verb, conscious evolution?
Great question. Great question. Because that's what we're continuing to do always, right? I think that all the experiences in my life, including the Spider-Man and what I just talked about in the book, it allowed me to be vulnerable openly on a Sunday, whether I'm on the pulpit, I'm in a class, and I think being that kind of an example is promising for our evolution, because we're in a time where there's a lot of misinformation being given. And when you can give the information about your authenticity, about your freedom to say, I am that I am, and you have the audacity to say, there's not a place where God is not, and I am God. Because how could it be anything other than that? It's that where I believe really is, it may not always feel that way, Dr. Sharri, you know, with your background, it doesn't always feel like you are making that difference always, but I'm going to know, and I do know, that by being an example, by being authentic, and by being daring enough to be vulnerable, has to mean something for our evolution. Yeah. Great question. Oh.
Thank you. So, Reverend Rita.
Follow that.
I want to say the same thing. I just want to say that if I hadn't had all the experiences I had, and if I wasn't willing to be, like, I feel like I'm this person who, like I said before, I've had all this life before this one. And when I bring it to the foreground and I talk about it and actually am honest about it, and then actually, like, it's like that quote, the unexamined life is not worth living, the Socrates quote. I feel like that's like my gift. Like, you need to examine your life. You don't need to do anything, but I invite you as an example of somebody who did that to examine your life and see where those places are that you want to reveal the truth of who you are and let go of the past and use the past as a stepping into more of who you are, so that you're not like stuck in the past. So I think that's conscious evolution, is us getting conscious of ourselves and putting aside the things that don't serve us anymore, and being willing to admit that they happen, like taking 100% responsibility for everything that in our life, and say, wow, look where I am now compared to that. I'm really growing. I understand. Like I said before, I've gone through so much of my life not conscious until I came to the Science of Mind teaching, not even understanding what you just kind of think. You don't even know you're thinking. You're just thinking. So I think, So I think the examined life is important, and that's, to me. You hear these roosters in the background; they're very loud.
I love roosters. I love them.
Okay. So yeah, they're letting.
The roosters are there saying, "Get real."
Yeah, they're saying yes, and so it is. Yeah. So thank you.
Okay, so you get to go first on the next question, and it sounds almost the same, but it's not the same. How does what you do, how you live, how you teach, how you write, how does everything you are promote, encourage, unveil, pick your own word, world peace?
Well, I believe one of the things, along with my husband, is loving myself. And through the gifts that I give, like when I'm totally in my joy, and when I'm totally in my juice, or whatever it's called, my vibe of really giving of myself, whether it's through my singing or through speaking or through my writing, all of these things, when I'm there, I know that's if more people were there, if they were willing to jump off and say, oh, this is what gives me joy, then we'd have a world full of people who were who were joyful about themselves and about what they that they were able to serve, and they were able to be in their joy. I think that would give that we would have world peace, because we would have happy, amazing people that were creative. And I think creativity is like, that's who we are. We're creative beings. And sometimes we hold back on it because we think, oh, well, I can't make money doing that, or, or that's not logical, or that's not, practical. And I'm just I'm knowing and not even just hoping, knowing that our kids will get that. Like they'll realize that they can go for those things that are their joy, and they don't have to bury themselves in jobs and stuff like that stifle them and everything. So I think living out loud and sharing that, it has to bring peace, because if we're at peace, then the world's at peace, because we are the world, right?
Absolutely.
So, and being kind and compassionate, but you can't be kind and compassionate if you're not kind and compassionate to yourself. So, right? Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll take that. Back to you, Patrick.
Well, I have to let you know, I'm kind of known in our center and around as the self-love, overly self-love teaching of that, because I believe that. And it's very hard because I know that self-love is what would absolutely have world peace and world, because when we love ourselves, and it sounds so cliche, I think that's why people kind of push it away, because, but I'm like, I'm writing a book on, because I'm determined to break the code on this self-love thing, because we're taught that that's the last place you go, and it's the first place that I go over self-love. If I'm condemning myself, if I look at my world right now, and boy, have I been looking at it lately, but if I look at the world now, all I'm saying is, oh my God, self-love, self-love. Because when I truly love Patrick, and I'm talking about when I can look in the mirror and not point out every fault that I can see, and I'm really taking time to love, and the inner child helps me with that. But when you really love yourself, there's not a way in this world I could hurt you. I could never hurt you. I could never pick up a gun and I could never do any of that. I could never treat my wife or your spouse or your partner in a way that is degrading. I could never do that if I loved myself. And loving myself, and the thing about loving yourself for world peace is, I had to break it to the poor congregation last week. You're going to have to practice, because it doesn't come naturally. I know you don't want to. I know you want me to go like this and go, wow, don't you feel your self-love? No, every day you have to remind yourself. And I believe that that's what our world needs, is not more love out there, but more self-love in here. And I think you'll think twice before the words that we say. We'll think twice before we make decisions that will destroy other people's lives. I know that if you loved yourself, and they go, that's impossible. I don't believe that, because we are naturally, our innate being is love. We just forgot, so.
Okay, so next question. Now you're going to close your eyes for this one, because you might want to double team this one. You're going to have to use your imagination. We are presuming that every single thing goes exactly the way you want it to go. Every event, every encounter, every relationship, every single element of your life for the next 10 years goes exactly the way you want it to go. What does CSL Kauai and Reverend Rita and Reverend Patrick look like? Your lives, your personalities, your ministry, everything. What happens to that 10 years from now? From 10 years of everything going exactly the way you want it to go.
Who goes?
I get you're first.
I'll go. Because I don't want to think about it too much, because then I'll make stuff up. You know how that goes. I want to be really honest. I see that Patrick, that best version of Patrick, doing what I'm doing now, but on a global, out into the world, traveling to different places, having these beautiful conversations that the three of us are having right now, traveling, getting more and more books out there, being more of those examples so that I can do what I'm doing now, and then have wonderful people here watching and taking, and them being a part of the versatility of our center, so that Rita and I can be, we'll be, and just to let you know, we'll be traveling first class, because you said the imagination, first class, and to teach everyone, whether or not you're actually sitting in first class, that everything that I do, everything that I am, every book I write, every person I counsel, anything, is that I'm always doing it from first class, or better yet, a new thought, first cause. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, traveling all over the place, coming to see you. We're coming to see you.
Okay, I have to keep my eyes closed so I can really see it. So, okay. I see a place. I see all the things Patrick sees, and I see a place where people can be their full selves. Like right now, I want to have a place where women can come with their books and their talks and all of that thing, and actually have ongoing stuff like that at our center. In fact, we're starting it right now. The authors that are in our center, I want them to each have an evening, like, or a talk, and where there's this place on Kauai, because it's a destination island, where people can come, and it's a safe place. It's a place for expansion, where there's always like something going on, some kind of, class or retreat, or whatever, anything, celebration, music, all of these things. So that when you come here, you say, oh, kind of like people go to the Hindu monastery here, and that's one of their destination places, and that we can have that here. And we have like a beautiful labyrinth. I didn't even talk about that nobody really knows about, that was given to us, that's on our floor, that is a beautiful piece of artwork, that people will know that they can come and walk that labyrinth, or they can come and visit with Patrick or I, the other ministers or practitioners, that there's always something going on there. So that's what I'm working toward right now. And that it will attract people, not just necessarily people on our island, but people all over the world. So, and then
nice.
we'll be traveling, because there'll be other people doing what we do. We won't be the only ones. So I envision that. Yeah.
All righty. So here's the last question. Will you come back?
Come back where?
Yes,
Here?
yes.
So the next opening I have is October 14th of next year. Can I pencil you in?
You can.
Yes.
Yippee! All right. All
Yes.
right. And so I want to let you and all the folks who are watching know, next week we have our guest is Marco Carrillo, and he is his ministry is called True North, and he's a fascinating person. So you're going to love hearing from him. I'm sorry you only get one person, but sometimes that happens. And these two will be back again. So thank you so much for being with us. Come back. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. And don't forget, I love you.
All right. Thank you,
Sharon. Thank you for everything you do. Yes.
Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing. Amazing. You will do amazing things.